My Lords, I rise and declaring an interest. I have just lately, in the last few days, stepped down as the Vice Chairman of the Local Government Resources Panel, which has oversight of audit and accountancy within the Local Government Association. And in that guise, I've been very well acquainted with the difficulties in local government audit. I suppose if there's a villain of the piece, and I use that word advisedly, Lord Porter, when he was chairman of the Local Government Association, struck a wonderful deal that established the PSAA that Lord Sicker relates to. He drove down those costs, and council taxpayers benefited from low-cost audit for many years. But I suppose with the benefit of hindsight, perhaps he did too good a job, because by and by it came to pass that it was very difficult for the local for the audit practitioners to recruit the right staff at the right level, and well, they got behind. And we ended up in the regrettable circumstances, through no fault of of Lord Porter, I need to stress, and COVID aggravated the situation, where we had a number of local authorities that had failed to sign off their accounts. And I can't remember the precise details, but some of them were 4 or 5 years old. So old, in fact, that the authorities concerned no longer existed because they had been reorganised away. So I'm very pleased that the last government, belatedly perhaps, took a grip, and there was a line drawn in the sand and some transitional arrangements, and now things are much better. So, but I'm very concerned that we now see the increase in the threshold. Look, I appreciate we need to increase the threshold value, but going from £6.5 to £15 million is a huge increase. It's an increase of 230% in one bite. And that's going to mean that some of the smaller authorities, which hitherto have been contained within the audit regulations, and I'm going to give some examples presently, will no longer do so. And I'm seeking reassurance, because we are establishing here the definition of a smaller authority. And I cannot be blind, and in fact the noble lady, the Baroness, the Minister, referred to it in the earlier item. I cannot be blind to the notion that we've got a local government devolution and what I would colloquially call a reorganisation bill in the other place. It passed second reading yesterday. And in that circumstance, we're going to see a large number of currently smaller authorities, principal authorities, which are subject to the full audit regime, fall into the third tier of local government. That is, they will not be subject to the either 5% or £5 council tax increase cap, if I can use that word. And I just want to, my Lords, just highlight the example of Salisbury City Council. Now, Salisbury City Council used to be a district council. It used to be a principal authority. But since the reorganisations in Wiltshire, that is no longer the case. And I need to tell you that in the last 4 years, they've jacked up their council tax by 44%. I note that their total precept for this year is only 6.065 million, marginally below the threshold limit at which they are subject to. And their gross income is 8.64. So currently they are part of the arrangement to have a full audit. And having jacked up council tax by 44% over the last 4 years, I think they should be. But of course, if the increase is increased to 15 million, then what assurance can the local people, the long-suffering residents in Salisbury have that the council's got their best interests in heart? By contrast, the Wiltshire Unitary Authority, that now assumes responsibility for most of the expensive services, has only put their council tax up by 4.5% last year. So I'm concerned that this definition will in due course, not today, because I'm conscious that we're concerned solely with audit, but I'm confident that this definition will be used as we go through local government organisation to give a free pass to some of the smaller city councils and larger town councils, which will inevitably fall out of the LGR process, and let them go rip. And of course, it's not just the district councils, it's the internal drainage boards. And I'm concerned of the case of Great Yarmouth Borough Council. Because Great Yarmouth Borough Council had an increase in the internal drainage board levy, which they were mandated to pass through to local taxpayers, of 91% last year. Over the last few years, it's gone up by 117%. What that means is that because the District Council in Great Yarmouth is a principal authority, it could only put its council tax up by £5. 91% of that was as a result of the increase, the unavoidable increase from the internal drainage board that lays within it. That meant only 9%, just £26,000 of the increase in council tax in that historic borough, and I declare an interest, my business is in that borough, but I don't pay council tax there, just £26,000 was able to be devoted to the provision and improvement of local services. So we're going to see a whole class of authority which would currently be within the 6.5 million, but will no longer be caught if the threshold rises to 15. I want to highlight the example of the Broads Authority, which is well known for its governance failings. It's well known to be a dysfunctional organisation, and in the interests of transparency, I have in the past made complaints to that body through the mishandling of certain planning matters. Their gross budget is £9.7 million. If ever an organisation needed the close scrutiny of a full audit, it is the Broads Authority. And now they will be given a free pass. They will be let off from public scrutiny. This is the unintended consequence of this bill. But I finally want to get it on the record about the definition of smaller authority. And within the context of local government reorganisation, I'd like to ask the Minister what the government's intentions are. Because if it is contemplated that this definition of smaller authority, the £15 million threshold, is going to be used post-local government reorganisation, when some of these smaller cities like Salisbury or larger towns like Scarborough or Shrewsbury, who are certainly covered by the audit now but wouldn't be in future, is it proposed that this definition will cap them at £5 or 5%? Because there will have to be some reckoning. We cannot have a situation where only the large unitary authorities that will be formed after LGR have their council tax capped at £5 or 5%. What is the government's view about capping, limiting, putting the local taxpayer first from some of these much larger authorities, which will take on other responsibilities, possibly for local culture, parks and dog bins, when their current responsibilities for social care, planning, housing and homelessness are removed? We cannot have a situation where this 230% increase in threshold allows a new class of large, small authority to let rip at the expense of local taxpayers.